Well, I want to teach you 4 of these universal laws of success today. I want you to walk out of this room with knowledge. The problem is, knowledge without application is worthless. You guys ever been to an event where you got lots and lots of knowledge, and by the time you got home you went, what do I do? The behavior stays the same. You will fall back in your same routines, and there's no change. It's not going to happen today. Something different is going to happen. You're going to walk with knowledge and application. Okay? Alright, so the first law I want to talk about is the law of kingdoms. The law of kingdoms states that from birth to present day, you've been writing laws about how life should be. You have laws about how fast to drive on the interstate. If the speed limit's posted 70 miles an hour, how many drive 70? Raise your hand. Drive over 70, raise your hand. Drive under 70, raise your hand. Okay, now I know who to scream at. Alright, so why do everyone drive different? If the speed limit's 70, why do we vary from 60 to 90? Okay, we choose. We choose based upon our laws. Why do we spend more money than we make? Because we choose based upon our laws. Tell us what to do. Okay? And so we have these laws about every part of life. We have laws about what kind of car to buy, how fast to drive down the interstate, what color it should be. Okay? Laws about everything. Laws about your finances, laws about your relationship, laws about your health. These are universal laws. These laws are powerful. They control you to a degree. Unconsciously, because they're subconscious laws. Okay? Now, we have both conscious and subconscious. The conscious ones you're aware of. But the subconscious ones, that's the 90% of the iceberg that's beneath the water surface, right? That's where most of your subconscious laws fall. And you're unaware of them. And so you do things and you say things that afterwards you go, oh, why did I say that? Well, you said that because your subconscious law produced it as an automatic response to your environment. How many of you would like success and wealth to be automatic to your response to your environment, right? Wouldn't that be great? When these laws work for you, it's natural and automatic. Things fall into place. It just happens to be there. You know why I'm standing here today? I'll tell you about one of these laws. In my mind, I was thinking, I would really like to get in front of people and talk about this, but I don't want to do my own event. 2 days later, Tammy calls me and says, hey Trevor, I've never met Tammy before, right? She calls him and says, hey Trevor, we've got a lot of requests to hear you speak. Would you like to come speak? It just fell right into place. This is what happens when the laws work for you. When they don't work for you, you go, oh, I want to speak in front of a bunch of people. And you call 1,000 people and you send out emails and flyers, and no one wants you to speak for them. That's the difference between the universal laws working for you and against you. Would you like success to be natural and automatic in all areas of life? Relationships. Your spouse just tells you what you want to hear. No, that doesn't work that way, sorry. You can't control other people. There's a universal law of agency that says I can't control other people. But you'll learn how to influence people in a powerful way. Because we're all human beings, and we can influence each other in a positive way or a negative way. Alright, so these are personal laws greatly influenced by our environment. Most of us grow up in a pretty good environment. I've heard some horrific childhood stories. Okay? But even when we grow up in a good, positive environment, we still have these limited laws. How many of you grew up in the Depression era? Everyone should raise their hand because it's been passed down since your grandparents lived in the Depression area. Okay? So what happens is it's passed along from generation to generation. These limiting laws about how life should be are passed down. And we hear it from our parents. We go to the grocery store, we're like, hey mom, I want a Kit Kat. And she says, we can't afford that. You can't afford a 49-cent candy bar, really? Yes, you can afford it. But we heard grandpa say that every time we went to the grocery store. Well, it wasn't 49 cents then, it was probably 5 cents. But either way, we couldn't afford a candy bar. And we hear this over and over and over. And so from birth to present day, we're writing laws about how life should be, and a lot of that comes from our environment. And we hear it over and over and over, and our brain goes, that's honest truth. I can't afford a candy bar. I can't afford to pay my bills. There's never enough money. How many have ever said there's never enough money? Raise your hand, don't be shy. Come on, we're all friends here. All right. Okay, there's never enough money. Well, guess what? When you're making $1 million a month, there's still not enough money. Because there's always something to buy. The toys just get more expensive and bigger. Okay? But you have to change that. If you believe there's never enough money, and that's a law written in your subconscious brain, it's going to affect your finances. We're going to learn how as we move along in the progress here, okay? Self-esteem. Guess where our self-esteem comes from? how I think, you think about me. What's the likelihood of me getting that right? It's a lot of guessing. Right? How I think, you think about me, that's how my self-esteem comes from. Self-image, how I think you see me. Bald and crazy. Some of you might be thinking that. Yes, I am bald, crazy, I will debate you on. But this all comes from our environment, and our subconscious brain sees and interprets everything in our world and tries to organize and make sense of it. And they come to these very powerful laws that affect us. Alright, so our personal laws stem from our needs. This is how we come about some of these personal laws, right? Anyone ever heard of Maslow? Abraham Maslow. We've got some psychologist minors in here, or majors, right? Abraham Maslow created what's known as the 5 hierarchy of needs. There's some, you know, you can find positive and negative about this, right? We're going to be positive, because I'm a positive person for the most part, which makes me mad that I'm very negative. Okay, so he says first we need physiological needs. We need oxygen, food, water to survive. Okay, if you grew up in an environment where there was not enough food, you could have some serious laws that state there's never enough food. And I've heard those war stories of children who did not have enough food. Okay, once we are fed, we have oxygen to breathe and water to drink. Now we want safety. Now we're kind of selfish because just food and water is not enough. We want more. We want safety. We want a home. We want shelter. We want liberty. And we know there's people who don't have liberty. Okay, but we need that liberty. That's something we need. We need to feel love and belonging. Okay, if you didn't feel loved and accepted as a child, you may struggle in your relationships, all relationships, because you don't believe or feel that you are lovable and acceptable. And it greatly affects your relationships later on in life. Okay, we need to feel esteemed or adequate. We need to feel accomplished at something. Are you good at anything? Or you fail at everything? Going through school with dyslexia, failing day after day, 12 years in the public school system, being told, you're a failure, and no matter how hard you try, you're going to fail, right? That's what the public school system taught me. Don't ask me to do algebra, all I know is I was a failure. But that affects those laws, and I've had to change all those laws to be successful. Because if I believe I'm a failure, I'm going to fail at everything. My relationships, my money, my health, my self-development, my spiritual life. Okay, the 5th one is self-actualization, or what I call your true and best self. Who are you before your world lied to you? You're not pretty enough, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you don't have enough money, you don't wear the right clothes, you didn't say that right, you didn't walk right. Okay, our environment's full of no's. Guess what the most popular word I just gave away in the English language is? No. How sad. Our word's vibration. What are we saying when we say no? We got a robot better tonight. Very sad. Okay? Our laws also come from, anyone heard of Erik Erikson? Okay? Psychosocial developmental stages. It's a mouthful. I won't say it again. Well, maybe I will, but I might get it mixed up. Okay? He said that from birth to death, we go through stages. And we learn certain things. Between the ages of 0 and 2, we learn to either trust our environment or we mistrust our environment. Now you combine that with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Okay? Did you learn to trust your environment that there's enough food to eat? Or did your environment teach you there's not enough food to eat? Between ages of 0 and 2. Okay? Did your environment teach you that you were loved and accepted? Or did your parents leave you in the crib to cry all night because they didn't want to teach you to get up in the middle of the night? How many had parents, or maybe you were the parents that did that, right? I did that as a parent. Totally messed up my kid. Okay. Between the ages of 2 and 4, we learn what's called autonomy versus shame and doubt, right? That's, am I good enough? You ever had a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old try to dress themselves and grab their pants and pull them over their head? You're like, no. Put the legs in the pants first, right? Or they want to pour their own milk into their cereal bowl, and you're like, oh, no, I don't have to clean up a gallon of milk. Well, let me pour the milk for you. Good parent, right? Teaching their kid they're not good enough. Sorry, I didn't mean to slap you upside the face for those upside down. I've done it, so I can say it. Alright, but you can see how these limiting laws come from a great environment and a bad environment. It doesn't matter how good of an environment you grew up in, you're going to have some limiting laws that says, I can't do it. And the more the more witnesses or evidence you found in your environment of these, the stronger they are and the harder they are to overcome. Did anyone ever put their hand on the stove or grab a curling iron as a child and burn your hands? Okay, your brain wrote a very, very powerful subconscious law that says, ouch, don't do that, that hurts. Did you do it again? You only had to do it once if you were smart. Okay, some of us had to do it twice. Weren't quite sure about the first time. But no, that's how fast and easy it occurs. The more emotional, the more traumatic the event was, the stronger the law is, and the harder it is to change it. So, if you don't understand universal laws of success, you're going to struggle. If you have personal limiting laws about how life should be, you're going to struggle. This is why 90% of the people control 10% of the money. Why the other 10% of the people control 90% of the money. Would you like to be the 90% that control 10% of the money or the 10% that control 90% of the money? 10%, right? This is going to help you become that 10%. Okay, the problem is all these laws we've written about how life should be based upon our needs, our wants, our expectations, okay, our developmental stages, they're not correct. And if you don't believe me, go drive on I-15 in Utah, right? You've got one guy in the far right lane driving 60 miles an hour. You got someone in the second lane driving 60 miles an hour. You got someone in the third lane, fourth lane, all driving 60 miles an hour, and you got 500 people behind them swearing and cussing, saying go faster, because their laws are different. One wants to go fast, one wants to go slow. Which one's right? Who's right? Do you drive 60, or do you drive 80 in a 70 mile an hour zone? Or do you drive 70? What's right? How do you know what's right? Everyone's been taught something different, or decided to do something different. What is correct? How do you know what's right? How do you know what's wrong? How do you know if your laws are correct or wrong? Results. What's the result? If you're getting lots of speeding tickets, what should you do? Keep speeding? You only have to do it once, right? You should only, maybe I should drive 90 in a 60 mile per hour zone, right? But how many times did you get away with it and not get caught? Which one did you believe? Right? You look for evidence in your world to support what your law tells you. Your law says you can drive 10 miles an hour over the speed limit, and if you get a ticket, you go, that's not true. I can really drive 10 miles an hour over the speed limit. So our results show us what our laws are. Results don't lie. So whatever result you're getting in your relationship, that's what your laws are telling you subconsciously. Whatever your financial situation is, that's what your laws are telling you. It's all subconscious level. Bald crazy guy, that's not right. I want money, and I'm poor. Want is lack. You want something, you're vibrating at a frequency of lack. I don't have it yet, I'm lacking it, I want. And this is where a lot of gratitude comes from, a place of lack.